Okay, Councilmember Burks, we are live on YouTube.
All right, thank you so much, Jeff, and thanks for everybody who's joining tonight. We've got 23 attendees and a lot of familiar names out there. So thank you so much for dialing in, especially on the 4th of July pre-week. I know a lot of people are out on vacation right now on holiday, so this is just a really important meeting. And I know, speaking on behalf of my colleagues here, Vice Mayor Kendall and Councilmember Geringer, we're really, really pleased you took the time to join us tonight, because this is just an absolutely crucial meeting, especially as we get kicked off. So I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order at 6 o'clock, and we'll do a verbal roll call. And I'll start with Vice Mayor Kendall.
Here.
And Councilmember Geringer.
Here.
And Councilmember Burks is here as well. And we'll go ahead and adopt the agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
I move we adopt the agenda. Oh, sorry.
and Councilmember Geringer, second.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. All in favor, say aye. Vice Mayor Kendall.
Aye.
Councilmember Geringer.
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. And for those of you that are on the phone right now, and can't see the agenda, the first item on the agenda was our roll call, and we just adopt the agenda. Now we're going to move to public comments, which is third on our agenda. And let me try to be as clear as I can with this section of public comment. This section of public comment is for anything that is not related to what we are talking about tonight. And let me just spell out what we're going to talk about tonight. What we're going to talk about tonight is under our discussion items element on our agenda, which is establishing a name for the task force and selecting a chair and vice chair, establishing a vision and objectives for the task force, identifying strategies to achieve the vision, and then we'll discuss next steps. So if anybody has a comment that does not relate to any of those things, or anything that might kind of draw out of those things, because we do want to be efficient here, if you could just raise your hand on the screen, the little icon, or hit *9 if you're on the telephone, that would be great if you could do that now. And Jeff, do we have any?
No, I do not see any public comment, Councilmember Burks. No hands are raised at this time.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. So we'll go ahead and we'll move to discussion items. So item number 4A is establish a name for the task force and select a chair and vice chair. Why don't we just, if it's okay with Vice Mayor Kendall and Councilmember Geringer, why don't we switch those in order? That way the chair can then move forward and lead the rest of the meeting, if that's okay with you. I'm seeing nodding heads. Great. Okay, so we'll go ahead and okay, great. We'll go ahead and select the chair for the task force, and I would actually like to move that Vice Mayor Kendall assume the chair position, and just a little reasoning behind it. As everybody knows, Vice Mayor Kendall is the vice mayor, and in a senior leadership role at least on this committee, and the number 2 on the council. I think it's really important, especially given the topic and given what we're about to embark on, that we have her leading this committee and moving forward. So I would like to move that to begin with. So is there a second or discussion?
I'll second it.
Okay. And let me just ask Vice Mayor Kendall, are you okay with doing this?
I'm delighted.
Chair? Okay, great.
Yes, thank you.
All right, so we'll just call a vote for that, and then I'll turn it over to Vice Mayor Kendall to do the co-chair. So all in favor of appointing Vice Mayor Kendall to chair of the committee, say aye. We'll do a roll call. Vice Mayor Kendall?
Aye.
Councilmember Geringer?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well, so 3 ayes, and Vice Mayor Kendall is the chair of the committee. And I will go ahead and turn it over to Vice Mayor Kendall to conquer forth.
Thank you. Yeah, this is going to be a group effort no matter what, and I so appreciate everybody contributing into this effort, and make sure that you keep me on my toes and reach out to me for any questions you have from anyone. Okay, please. I like communication, So please, I want to move that, have that moving forward. So now I want a vice chair. And so I would like to make a motion to nominate Cam Burks as the vice chair. I think he's got a great background in security and a lot of different really good strategies already. And I think he and I could work together as chair and vice chair and make an effective team. So is there a second, or is there any discussion?
So I am probably inclined to second that. I do, coming into this, I do, and Cam, I'm sure that you have thought through this and you know your schedule and you know your time. I do wonder about having that overlap between the public safety that you're already chairing and having that pretty big initiative that's going forward as well. And as well as all the other things that we have going on. And so if you've thought through that, I will consider making the second on that.
Yeah, in fact, I mean, it's a great, if it's okay to Vice Mayor Kandel, if I can respond. I think it's a great point that you raised. And as soon as Vice Mayor Kandel said that, I think, I mean, listen, this is going to be an inclusive, and this is kind of the first of its kind, as I see kind of Narup smiling there, with the three of us on such a committee where we're all going to, like the Vice Mayor said, have an equal voice, and we're going to have a great dialogue with the public. It's all about the public here. And this is sort of the formality of it. I certainly have the bandwidth, and I think I'll be able to bring an angle from the Public Safety Committee into this that will be favorable, that will add value to it. So it's perfectly acceptable for me to take it on, and I appreciate it if it's okay with you, Teresa.
Yeah, I mean, we're a committee of three, but also because we're a committee of three and with Brown Act, our colleagues, who I see one of them is out in the attendee room, will be very involved in this process as well. So I will, well, of course, I would love to have a leadership role in a bigger way. I will second the motion to have you be the vice chair.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. So we can take, do you have any discussion or go straight to the vote? We're good. Okay, so please take a roll call vote. Councilmember Geringer?
Aye.
And Councilmember Burks?
Aye.
And I am also aye, so are unanimous in our chair and vice chair. Thank you. And now just a quick procedure, and I'll take some help from you, Narup, on this. Should we have public comment after each one of these discussion items, or how would you like us to engage with the public in this particular meeting?
I think I would advise you to take public comment after each item.
Okay.
Because this is your first meeting and there are people here who really have a lot to say.
Right.
I am going to, or I have to talk to what staff will handle the timer. Given that we have a number of participants, we're going to keep to the 3-minute rule. And it's up to you to ask questions and extend that conversation.
Sounds great. Okay, so go ahead, Cam.
No, I was just going to ask to the Vice Mayor. We'll just another housekeeping item on top of that to Narup. We've got 43 attendees, which is awesome, and I think more are dialing in as we go along here. I would suggest that we set some parameters around the time limit for the meeting, because we're going to have probably a lot of meetings, and I think we've set the record for going super long within the county on meetings. Just in general, I've heard by rumor over the last 4 years. Now we need to hear everybody out, but a lot of commissions and committees we've set an hour or 2 hours. I know on the legislative subcommittee where we have heavy attendance, Chairman Bliss is great about it. He sets an hour block, but maybe 2 hours tonight, or it's just open for discussion. I just wanted to throw it out there.
I think a 2-hour goal would be terrific. And if for some reason we are just not able to finish in that amount of time, we can try to make it as close to that as we can. We are going to have a ton of other meetings on this particular topic. And so we want to hear everybody. I know we're going to have a town hall, and that, you know, we're having a lot of things planned. So this one more is a meeting on just to kind of establish the groundwork and the strategy moving forward, rather than deciding on strategies, right? So this is just a step, an organizational step to help us drive this process forward. And so, yes, we want to hear from everybody, but definitely everybody's going to get a chance to weigh in many times, I hope. So thank you. But I think we can aim for 2 hours tonight. And if we're early, great. If we're a little over, that's okay too.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. All right, Teresa, anything?
No, it's fine.
Okay, sounds great. All right, so a name. Gosh, you know, I was struggling with a name, and I know a lot of other cities have tried to name their things, and I want our name, at least for this particular thing, to be broad, because it's not just one topic, hopefully, that we're addressing. And so, like, Berkeley has reimagined public safety, and I'm like, well, I'm not sure that's what we want to do. I think we want to make it a little broader. So I had a dumb idea. I mean, obviously, I would love to get a lot of other ideas, but mine was just diversity and equality in Lafayette, or it could just be equality in Lafayette. Those were things were hitting me. So does anybody else have any other ideas? Teresa, yes.
So along those same lines, actually, I have kind of a procedural question. And I know I looked at the agenda and wasn't really sure who to call, because we didn't have a chair and, you know, to calm the group and all of that. But in terms of naming and in terms of anyway, it feels like, are we then going to, as part of our strategies, we'll be looking at who will be on the task force, because it's not going to just be the three of us saying, we're going to have a town hall, we're going to do this, we're going to do that. And so part of it, to get us started, to have something that we put on the city calendar or something like that, we can have a name. But as part of, as we're going forward, I think the community would also have some input into that. But in looking, as I'm sure all of us did, you know, Equity Lafayette was one of the just very simple, and it covers that broad range that you were talking about. Another thing that as we go forward, even though I mentioned the public safety, your first thing was, you know, policing and, you know, how we integrate all of this together. And we've kind of gone out of the chute with two different paths. And so I think as our task force goes forward, some of these things will evolve. And so because it was on the agenda, I tried to think of a name, but I was really kind of more about how do we do that civic and community engagement? How do we make sure that the item that's going to come next on the agenda, that we're really thinking about this as Kim said it on the public comment piece, but we're thinking about this as a community, as a Lafayette residents, as a they're here, you know, we're here as being elected by them. And so I want us to just, as we're starting off, can have us be, hopefully that's where we all are. But I would throw out Equity Lafayette. As I was looking through the difference between equity and equality, I feel equity works there, and not that hung up. I actually liked, and hopefully everybody will appreciate an intent here, but I did like Inclusive Lafayette, but I understand that there is a group of young advocates who have taken that already with their Facebook page. But that's really where we're going, right? I mean, their focus is similar, but that's where we're going. I mean, it's really about creating that equity in our community and that inclusiveness, that belonging, and equity seem to do that.
All right, Cam?
Yeah, no, thanks. And Councilmember Gehringer, I could not agree more. I think with everything you've said, and I don't know, I was strategically just thinking about this when I brought it up in the council meeting a couple weeks ago, or was it Monday? I can't remember. It's all a blur. But was to, you know, for us to, I don't know, Councilman or Vice Mayor Kendall, if this is, you know, we kind of throw out maybe just an idea of what we're thinking, and then we turn to the public to
Yes.
really get there. I think
Mhm.
that's the plan, right? To
Yes.
get there, right? And then we come back and make a decision based on, really what the public input is and have. But so just as a teaser of names, I agree with both of yours. Are fine. Diversity and inclusion is ones I thought of. The equity, Lafayette was also one that I thought of as well. So I think we're all on the same page there.
Sounds great. All right, any comment in the group or anything before we go to public comment?
As with naming children, it may just strike us as being the ideal name at the end of this meeting after you hear people talk about the issues, as Councilmember Burks says. So we'll find a suitable name at the end of the meeting, I'm sure.
Okay, all right, we might come back to it, but I'd like to hear some of those names right now, though, if people are on. Hey, Jeff, do we have any raised hands?
We do, Vice Mayor Kandel. Let me see, we've got Janine. So she will be joining the meeting right now. And go ahead and unmute yourself. You're ready to go.
Hello.
Hello.
I can't. Oh, okay. Now I can see somebody. Can the people
Great.
see me?
You don't have your video going, but we see your name on
Oh,
the
I
screen.
don't. Oh.
But we see your name on the screen.
Right.
There
There
she
I am.
is. Yes. Hello. Welcome.
Hello. Oh, thank you.
So
I heard
do you have
about
go ahead.
a name. I don't. I hadn't really thought about what was the best name. I found out about this meeting, and I know Teresa Geringer, and so I thought I would come and listen to what you had to say. And I don't know what the best name is. Maybe they're all good. And it's just a choice, I guess, you'll have to make.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions of the speaker?
I would just ask maybe if the speakers could just say their name and if they're comfortable saying where they live before they
Thank
have
you.
public comment would be helpful if they're willing to state their address.
Well, I'm Janine. I live on Sweet Drive above St. Perpetua's Catholic Church.
Thanks.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, yeah, for future speakers, please state your name, and if you would like to release where you live, that would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, hold on one sec. We do have a couple more public speakers at this time. So we have Michael Kass. And please unmute yourself and go ahead, Michael.
Hello, Michael.
Hi, everyone. First of all, I want to thank you for hosting this meeting and having this really important conversation. I'll be brief. In terms of the first topic, I would recommend that you name the task force the Equity and Inclusion Task Force. And I recommend that for a couple of reasons. First, in regards to the comments that task force member Geringer mentioned, there really is a difference between equity and equality. Equality is the utmost goal, but equity is the process to help you get there. And I think that really is the purpose and intent behind this task force. I'd recommend actually calling it a task force though, rather than calling it just Equity Lafayette. I think Equity Lafayette would be a good opportunity for branding for the effort going forward after this task force efforts sunset. But I think there is an importance of talking about the here and now and the actions and letting the task force be an important part of the name of the group. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions of the speaker?
No,
All right, thank you. Oh, thank you, Michael.
Okay, we have one more speaker and it is Kishore Nath. Joining the meeting now. Please unmute yourself.
There we go. Can Can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, good. Okay. So my name's Kishore Nath. I've been in Lafayette for 10 years. I look tall now. And just I'm one of the co-chairs for John Muir Health Systems initiative for diversity and equity. We are centering on names that don't include diversity and inclusion because those indicate otherness. And when we've been hearing people talk at our hospital system, but also at the Lafayette, that one protest that was organized, and just I'm working on Richard Whitmore's committee for the Lafayette School Board. The stories have been very painful. What I've been hearing is people do not feel, the people are making a choice to suffer from comments and because they want their kids here in this school district and want to live in this community. So they're really not feeling that they belong. We are going to go with belonging and equity. So equity, I think the last speaker spoke to, but diversity, inclusion, anti-racism do sound good. And so I think for the committee, it would be, who are you appealing to? Are you appealing to the minority members who are feeling slighted? Then it's more of a open arms that you matter and you belong. If you're appealing to the majority who need to kind of help the who want to learn how to help, then the older terms, diversity, include, the common one is diversity, equity, inclusion, and anti-racism, and that's used at UCSF, that's used at Kaiser. The same words are just put in different order. If you're trying to be on the leading edge, then it's equity, it's belonging, and then if you want to be showing that you're into action, it would be anti-oppression or anti-racism, and those are the action words. So thanks for the time.
I very much appreciate you coming and sharing, because you do have a lot of background in this right now. So thank you for your comments. Any other questions? Okay, all right.
Okay, we don't have any more speakers at this time.
Okay, do we feel comfortable in trying to select a name right now? Do you want to have some discussion, or do you want to wait, like Nirup was saying, maybe at the end of the meeting? Or do you want to discuss it right now? Any thoughts? Yes, Teresa.
I think that I would like to Nirup's analogy, see sort of how our infant, our child develops through the meeting, and then select a name. I really appreciate the input that we just received. And I think as we go forward, we'll probably learn more that might help guide us on the name.
Sounds great. Well, you can.
Yeah, I agree. I think the last speaker really hit it on the head. You know, it's what we're trying to solve for, I think, is the goal here. So I think we'll be informed a little bit later in the meeting, better informed.
Okay, so let's try to loop back and try to not to forget. We'll loop back at the end of the meeting before we adjourn and try to get a name decided. Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you for your speakers. All right, so now we're on discussion item 4B, which is to establish a vision and objectives for the task force. And so do we have any discussion from the council? All right, Cam.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to, there's a little background. So when I raised this to the council, I didn't draw out a proposed, vision or strategy language, because I didn't want to taint the process or the public's input. But I don't think we're going to get great public input tonight. There's 51 participants online right now. So I don't know, maybe, I've written out, I've sketched out just a short vision, and I'm happy to read it, or sure, if we all want to maybe just framework it out and then get the public's input. Is that acceptable?
Sure.
Okay. So, and this is what this is what I had actually written out before the council meeting. But so my vision, and again, it's on behalf of the people that we work for, who are the people on the call, and all 25,000 people in Lafayette. We have a lot of bosses that we work for. But my vision is really seeing a new community where all people are treated equally, with respect, dignity, and fairness, free from fear, and where we proactively embrace and enable diversity and inclusion in the fabric of the city. That would be my vision.
Okay, that's great. Teresa, do you have any comments?
Hey guys, sure, I'm unmuted. I think that is a good start for a vision statement. And I think that as Councilmember Burks pointed out, and as I said kind of in the beginning, that I know this is very, very much how you want to start a strategic plan, sort of how you want to go through things. And so we have to have a starting point, and it's easier to edit and weigh in on something if you have that starting statement. But I really do want to hear from the community and thoughts on how best we can develop this plan to go forward. And I think the vision, having us say our why we want to start this is a good thing. But I think that as we go forward, the whole point of this task force will be to help define that as well. So we have to have kind of our why, but I look forward to hearing the public comment as well.
Sounds great. So in this discussion item, we were going to have a vision and objectives. And so maybe if there's any discussion before we open it up to comments on objectives before public comment. So do either of you have any ideas for objectives?
Go ahead, Kim.
Oh, but no, Teresa, go. I think you beat me with your finger there. I saw it. I was watching real
go
fast.
ahead. I mean, I'm still kind of back to the, so the objectives, kind of just very high level are to basically the vision Cam stated, which will be our vision once it's all done. I may keep saying Councilmember Burks' vision, but I think the objectives are to engage the community. And I loved what Kishore, I think was the person's name who's working on all these different committees, is who is our target audience? So I think we want to engage the community. Who are we who's our target audience? Who are we trying to engage? I would say the whole community, those who are impacted by these issues, which in many ways are all of us, those who have a responsibility to not remain silent and be able to help bring forward change. And so community engagement, who's our target audience? And then how do we do that? And how do we do that in a way that's authentic and really does reach out to engage everyone? And I know that Cam always says the 25,000 people. I think it's a little bit more than that. But we'll find out soon with the census. But I think that I kind of almost want to back up. Well, no, I'm going to do what I do and go a little bit too much into the procedure. But I think that figuring out kind of that bigger picture is how we go forward with the process. So I'm going to get myself all discombobulated here because I have so many things going on in my head and don't want to make it about me, but make it about the community. So number one objective is to engage the community, and I'll stop there. Then I have other thoughts broken down here. We'll actually add one thing. In order to do that, I think we also need as an objective to understand where we are now. So I think some data-driven analysis and tools, whether they're surveys or whatever they are, I don't want to get in the weeds on implementing yet. But the other piece is really understanding what our bandwidth is and our objectives on how much we can do this by ourselves. So one thing I would like us to look at, and I'm probably going again over into process, is tools or resources or consultants or others that we might use so that we can rely on best practices and not reinvent the wheel. So I'll stop there for a moment.
Okay, thank you. All right, Cam.
Yeah, no, it's good stuff from Teresa. Thank you. And I do think, I know I'm jumping ahead, but you know, having a professional facilitator or a group come in or a single person subject matter expert that others are using, and there's so many great ones are in the Bay Area that you know we could look at using as we advance this forward, would be a great idea. But I know we're going to talk about actions later. Listen, my view is again, I really think, you know, moving ahead, and I wrote this out 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. I saw it as, you know, a vision and then sort of a mission or objective, and then underneath that, sort of the strategies that would enable us to get, you know, our mission fulfilled, and then ultimately our vision at the end of the day. And you know, Michael Kass talked about equity leading to equality. So equality was part of the vision I was thinking of, and so that to me made sort of logical sense. Not to get too complicated, but I wrote one out, and I'm just going to read it, and take it or leave it. And it's just for all 51 participants on the phone. But it's more of, I'm taking the approach of just planting some seeds, I guess. And then we can just, I really just want the public to form this more than anybody, but maybe this will help some of those that are still searching for words. So what I wrote is, so leading to a vision. So how we would actually achieve the vision as a community, and it's probably more than 25,000 people, is I wrote, our mission is to create a sustainable transformation. And I wrote transformation because, and I've said it before, I sincerely believe there is an undercurrent of strong racism in particular in our community. So transformation to me was big. So our mission is to create a sustainable transformation free from racism, bigotry, prejudice, social inequality, so that everyone in our city truly feels safe and truly feels that they're a valued member of our community. So that was my mission or objective to get us to our vision.
Great. I think this is delightful. So when I was trying to think of objectives, and this isn't the time for me to go into, you know, the how or whatever, but I know that there are people residents in Lafayette that don't feel safe here. And some of them are my nephews. I have 3 Black nephews, and they live in Oakland now, but they used to live in Lafayette. And I took care of them in the afternoon, so we're real close. And they wouldn't even come to the protests with me. And they knew that it was going to be, you know, as kind of a safe environment, or at least that's what was likely going to happen. But they underwent things in Lafayette that they're still scarred, and they didn't want to come because they're afraid. They go, no, sorry, Tanti Susan, there are too many white folk and too many police, so I'm not coming. I'm like, okay, wow, all right, so it hits hard. So we have to somehow figure that out. But I'm also getting calls from a lot of people who are, they don't want to reduce our police force. They will not accept any change that we do, especially I'm dealing mostly with the police right now, that would make them feel less safe. And I 100% believe that as an objective, we can just clearly state, none of these things can allow us to be less safe, right? We're going to make a group of our residents feel a lot safer, but not at the expense of other residents feeling safe. And I think we can achieve this. I think that there are absolutely strategies that other cities are looking at right now where everybody's going to feel as safe or safer than before. I honestly, after looking at our budget and looking at, I've got it here, but basically our police funding is going up and up and up, and our revenues are going down, down, down. And so I think it's just a matter of policy. We're going to have to look at everybody's budget And what I like about this item coming now is that we're going to have to look at the budget, but this gives us a framework. This gives us, oh, don't just get rid of some officers, do something like the transformation, right? Do something that makes sense in this new framework where we're trying to achieve, equity. And I think that's amazing. I think we're lucky. I mean, we're going to have to do this together anyway, so we might as well do it and have this lovely vision and the strategy to guide us in our changes. But I do not want to ever think that this is going to lead to a less safe Lafayette. I think we have to put that as an objective, that it's just not okay, but it's got to be a lot more safe for a lot of our residents. So to me, those were two key goals, along with what Cam and Teresa are saying as objectives. And we'll try to, now maybe we can hear from the public and where they think we should be going with all of this. So do we have any more discussion before we go to the public, or Naroop or anybody? No? Okay. All right, so let's go to public, and please, if you can, state your name, and if you want to show, say which city you're from, that would be great too. So Jeff, do we have any public comment?
We do. We have Kishore Nath again. So he's coming in right now.
Hi again.
Hi.
I guess I'm going to comment every time. If you let
Good.
me.
It's okay.
So I took some notes. The vision and mission statements are, they're pretty good. I like them a lot. I think we run into this at work all the time. I'm hearing like a discrepancy between what are goals and what are objectives. So I heard the mission statement as a goal, which is actually really aspirational. I thought it's really cool. The one thing I would ask is in the vision, if the group agrees, is to have something about reducing disparities, because that's an action, that's a statement of an item. The other thing I would add, two more things I'll add, because I know other people want to talk, is when we've been doing our analysis, usually when cities want to do this, or in our case, institutions want to do this, there's usually they're 5 to 6 point plans. It's pretty much laid out. And it sounds like if the scope is going to be initially achievable and realistic, that you all may be considering the first few things, which are engagement, and that includes engagement with the police, and allowing the police to police, to do their stuff without. And what we run into is the police end up doing a lot of healthcare. Firemen do a lot of healthcare. They're doing social calls, and it'd be like sending me as a physician to go put out a fire. Like, you wouldn't call me to put out a fire. So it's really refining what the asks are, and diverting resources, which are probably less expensive, for those things that the police are actually called upon to do. But the first two things would be collecting informatics, collecting metrics, and I'm looking at my notes here, and then also establishing a common language, which is, and I don't know if I'm allowed to call you Cam, but Cam referred to prejudice and bigotry and racism. Like, we have to kind of, everyone who has the goal of reducing these ills of society have to agree what those are. And because I know, if you go on the Lafayette Twitter of these high school kids, it's pretty vile what's going on. And you can, and so just establishing what the words are, and so everyone can kind of speak the same language.
That's 3 minutes here.
Okay, I'll stop.
Okay.
Any questions of the speaker?
I'll just make one comment. Kishore, you can always call me Cam, please. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thanks for your comments. Really good.
All right, thank you. Yeah, those excellent comments and recommendations. Thank you. Any more speakers?
Yes, we have one more, two more now. Okay, Tobias Bodine is now joining, and three more actually. Is now going to be joining the meeting. All right, please unmute yourself. You are in.
Hi, everyone. My name's Tobias, and I live in the Lafayette Orchards area. I've lived here about 5 years, and my wife has been here about 25 years. So I grew up in the Bay Area, not in Lafayette. But when I was young, we knew Lafayette as a sundown town. And if you don't know what that is, I just recommend that you look up what it actually is. And Councilmember Candel's stories about her concerns caused me recently to ask my own stepson if some of his friends had ever had experiences with the police in Lafayette. And he said, yes, he's been pulled over once in Lafayette. He's a pretty young driver, hasn't been driving very long, but he's been pulled over once. And that one time was when he had some friends, people of color, in his car. And so these are real and concrete issues that I think not just affect people in our community, but the people that visit our community. And so I want to recommend that this task force really consider that our community also includes the people that work here, the people that visit here. And given the ethnic makeup of the neighborhood that I live in, it is very rare to see kids with the same skin tone as my stepson's friends. And so I think it's important to acknowledge that our community is much wider than just here in Lafayette. Another thing that I think we should address, and I appreciate all of you for being a part of this task force, is some of the language that's used when we talk about people that may not necessarily live here. For example, last week in the city council meeting, I heard one of the city councilors refer to an Asian American, or in the context of the BART land, as disgusting. And I wouldn't have been so hypersensitive to that. But what happened was that I had seen some comments on Facebook in certain groups that are specific to La Miranda that had accused Assembly Person Chu of being from Southern California. And that was a confusion because there's another Chu who is from Southern California. And I think there was some kind of bias in there. And I want to point out that as we go forward, that it's really important to check some of the privilege that you have as city councilors, but also that we can engage in real conversations about this, because I also experienced some of that same feeling at last night's planning commission meeting when I heard people talk about outsiders and using the yeah, but. Oh, I'm for diversity, but I'm for low-income housing.
We're hitting 3 minutes here.
Thank you. I'm just going to leave it at that. Thank you very much.
Any questions to the speaker? No. Thank you, Tobias. Any more?
Yep, we have a couple more. And let's see who's next here. Meredith Mead is going to be joining the meeting now. Meredith, you are in the meeting. Please mute yourself and go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Good evening.
Hello.
I've never joined a meeting like this. It's all brand new. Thanks so much for holding this meeting tonight. I apologize. I'm speaking on behalf. I'm currently the president of the Lafayette School District Governing Board. So my superintendent, Richard Whitmore, apologizes for not being able to make the meeting this evening. He had something else that came up. And so he asked me to speak to you tonight on the district's behalf. And what he wanted me to convey to you is that we are happy and willing and want to partner with the city on this task force in any way that you see us adding value and he also wanted me to let you know that we had in not our last governing board meeting, but our board meeting on June 17th, we had a presentation about the ongoing practices of what sorts of diversity and inclusion activities were happening in our schools, from the principal of Burton Valley Elementary, Meredith Dolly, and also the principal of Stanley Intermediate, Betsy Balmat. And so we heard about things that they're doing. And then we also heard about, unfortunately, and I imagine that there are many of the participants in tonight's meeting are members of our superintendent's committee that he has put together on diversity and inclusion. Their first meeting, I think, was scheduled for March 16th. And so unfortunately, as you know, school shut down and we had to pivot and start figuring out how to do distance learning. I think, as Superintendent Whitmore said, it was a regret of his that got pushed down the road. And so they have had a meeting since, and they are having ongoing meetings. I'm afraid I'm going to run out of time. There's a slide deck on the LAFSD website that talks about what we've been doing and also our ongoing plans for the future. And I imagine I wasn't timing myself, but
no, but you hit that right on. We're at 3 minutes.
Thanks.
Good timing.
Thank
Do you have anything else you want to add? I mean, honestly.
No, I mean, I could tell you what our plans for the future if you want, or you can go
quickly. Just
quickly.
Quick, that'd be great.
Okay, our plans for the future are, our ongoing practices. We've been partnering with Akalani's and doing some training for teachers and administrators, and actually some Stanley students through the Beyond Diversity program that's been happening for a couple of years. We're going to continue to do that. We're exploring district-wide options for equity leadership. Our plans for the future are to really get the district equity leadership teams going and transition them into school equity leadership teams and ensure a long-term commitment. We're reviewing school-based practices with principals and district leadership and agreeing on common approaches where and whenever most impactful for student experiences. We're embracing explicit conversations about race in planning, program development, and in daily life with students and teachers. We're going to explore more deeply the impact of race on student achievement. We're going to enrich the curriculum through experiential learning that is culturally responsive, through units that expand learning about race, and by bringing a more constant lens of race to existing curriculum in the district. And then finally, identify immediate training opportunities to build teacher and administrator understanding while a stronger foundation is built district-wide.
Great. Lofty agenda. Good job.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
And I appreciate, I would just say, I know, I mean, now that I can see what you're seeing, that there's 52 participants. I encourage you, I think we have so many wonderful, awesome people in Lafayette that could add so much value to your task force. So I just encourage you to open it up to everyone to become a part of things.
Sounds great. Any questions of the speaker?
I was actually, thanks, Meredith. I was just going to ask if you had any thoughts on community, but also that school, city school kind of partnership in terms of how to incorporate that.
I personally don't. I mean, I think when this, as this, has all been occurring, it seems to me like we have that new city schools committee. It seems like that's a really a great place for us to interact together. But but obviously, if you have this other task force too, I think it would be helpful to have school representation on that, and which might be parents also, not necessarily, school board members. So although I imagine, I mean, I know that I have other school board members that are very interested. So I imagine if you have applications, you might very well get school board members applying to be a part of it. So.
Thank you.
And Cam? Right.
Yeah,
And
I just,
Councilmember Burks, sorry.
no, it's okay. Cam, that's fine. Meredith, thank you so much. I mean, it says a tremendous amount that you're here tonight. So
I don't think I'm the only one. I'm just
I know.
speaking on behalf
Well,
of the
you,
district. So
by you, I mean the larger you.
Yeah.
But you yourself as a leader and the president of the school board, Lafayette School Board, I really want to thank you. And I do think it's important, you know, the schools committee, the school city committee, you know, bringing that element in. We have our public safety committee that's going to bring the policing in, and you know, to go with the talk about engagement earlier. I'm going to hit on that in the next topic, but it goes to engaging the different slices of everything that I think this task force wants to perhaps look at. I did have one question. So you said you're engaging with Acalanes High School, or was that
the Acalanes School District?
The school district. Okay,
Yeah.
so that includes. I want to make sure that we've got Campo in there and all the high schools, because we have obviously the bigger La Miranda and then Lafayette kids who.
Right. I mean, from what I understand, the Beyond Diversity program is really coordinated by Amy McNamara, who's one of the assistant superintendents for the Acalanes School District. So they run their program district wide.
Great. Thank you. Thanks again, Mary.
Yeah, thanks for doing this.
Thank you. All right, bye. All right, Jeff, any more?
Yes, we have a number of speakers, and I just want to make sure that folks know that this is the section, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, we're on item B, and that is establish a vision and objectives for the task force. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so if you want to speak on that, keep your hand up. If you don't want to speak on that, please lower your hand. And we do have coming, oh, we did have a few hands get lowered there. Okay. All right, Tess Olson's going to be joining us right now.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so I also want to echo a previous comment about how it's more than just like quote unquote our community, but it's the larger community, because I think part of the issue here is also the fact that our community is so walled off, like it is built to be a bubble intentionally, and we need to address that and address the barriers that our town has placed that prevent people of lower socioeconomic status, and which is tied to race. So like people of color, what has prevented people from coming into our community. So I think it needs to be like expanded to what institutionalized things and systemic things does Lafayette need to address in order to bring those barriers down? You know, especially since we're a predominantly white town, over 70% white, 0.96% Black. I'm sure those numbers will change, you know, with the census, but because that also links to affordable housing, because I was at the Affordable Housing Planning Committee, and that was also very disheartening to hear some of the comments there. So I think there's some things that need to be addressed. And I also would like to address policing in general. I don't think that this committee should like discount looking into what cuts in policing would look like, because I think a lot of white suburbia's experience with police is that there's a lack of contact. So I think a lot of that experience of like, oh, police keeps me safe is very like, I have low contact with them, and so I feel safe, whereas for many Black people and other people of color, that's not the case. So I would just like to pose kind of some of those objectives as looking more into policing and looking into other institutionalized things that Lafayette can address to make our community more accessible to all populations.
Thank you. Do you have any questions of the speaker? No. Thank you so much, Tess. Appreciate it.
Okay, next up we have Beth Faree, I believe. Okay, go ahead, Beth. You should unmute yourself and you're in the meeting.
Can you unmute yourself, Beth? I can see that you are, there you go.
John unmuted me. I'm sorry, I'm not very technological. My name is
That's
Beth
okay.
Marie. I've lived in Lafayette for 35 years this last month. And I also am a retired psychologist who practiced in Lafayette for 35 years. And I just want to support what I've also heard other people say and just say a little bit more about it. I think a huge part of what I would like to see the objective of this group is to really find out from the people who work in Lafayette and who visit Lafayette why they don't live in Lafayette. And I have just personally asked the people that I've had personal contact with, the people who clean my home, the people who help me with my yard. And one person, we've left Lafayette for a month, actually. We're up in 5,000 people, Quincy, California, which is beautiful. But so I haven't been able to continue doing this, but to ask these people, why don't they live in Lafayette? And if they don't live, what would it take for them to want to live in Lafayette? And you hear a lot of really important thoughts about, not just it. Definitely affordable is a huge part, but also wanting their kids and their community to reflect them as well. So teachers that reflect their own, a diversity in teachers and a diversity in leadership within the community, so that they don't feel like they're the odd people out. So I just want to again emphasize that I do think that really spending some time asking folks what would make Lafayette a place that would be more appealing for them to live would be a worthwhile endeavor. And thank you. I really appreciate your work and look forward to continuing to participate any way we can.
No, thank you. Does anybody have any questions of the speaker? No. All right, thank you, Beth.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, we have another Beth joining us now, and that's Beth Nadal.
Hi. Thank you for hosting this. And I want to applaud the City of Lafayette once again. And want to let you know that the library has also set up a task force that's including our librarians, our board members, our staff, just to review kind of the richness that is the Lafayette Library. And we know that we have people who come in from all over the county to use our library. So it's definitely, while it is for the citizens of Lafayette, it's definitely inclusive of people from many different communities. And we've hoped that our programs have reflected that in the past, but we're going to double down and make sure that our programs reflect the need and the interest in the future. And we want to work closely with you to bring in authors and thought makers, lecturers that can help share the vision. And that's, we've begun work with the school. So a couple of people in our committee are tasked with working with Acalanes, Campolindo, elementary schools. We've met with Richard Whitmore. So we'd be glad to participate and work any way we can. Thank you.
All right, any questions of the speaker? No, thank you, Beth. Great
Thanks,
news.
All right, next joining us is Tammy. Tammy's in the meeting now, so please unmute yourself.
Hi there.
Hi, Tammy.
My name is Tammy Lee. I am a resident in the Happy Valley area of Lafayette. I have two little boys growing up in this community. And I just wanted to speak to a sense that if we want to achieve this vision of equity in our community, that we really have to internalize understanding that equity is not a zero-sum game. I appreciated a comment shared about wanting everyone to feel safe in the community, and that is certainly a very important value. But I think in the context of, in the context of achieving a Lafayette where everyone can belong, I think that what would be important is to really center the needs of those who are most vulnerable. And so what that would mean is equity is not just about people who want police having the police to protect them, and people who fear the police no longer having to be scared. It's really about the people who want the police realizing that when less people fear the police, everybody in the community benefits. So I wanted to underscore that until we have all people in our community really internalizing this understanding that equity is not a zero-sum game. It's not like when I feel safer, you're going to feel less safe. And so you need to protect your safety and my safety. It's about when I feel safer, we all feel safer. So I just wanted to suggest that nuance in how we're thinking about and talking about equity within this community.
Thank you. Any questions of the speaker? No, excellent point though. Thank you. Okay, thank you, Tammy.
All right, next up is Y Chai Kwok, who's joining the meeting now, and he knows how to unmute himself. I know that.
Hi there, Waitai Kwok. I'm a recent empty nester up on Oak Hill Road near the BART station. 3 comments for the group. Great meeting so far. Number 1 on the naming, because words matter. If you haven't, this is an important committee, words matter. If we're not going to find it out tonight, why rush tonight to make those? Why not do it more thoughtfully when we can get the right words? And that goes with the mission and the vision statement too. There's a lot of good stuff coming out tonight. I don't see the real need to rush and vote on it by 8 o'clock. Secondly, Kishore made a great comment about who's the target audience for these words. Is it the majority or is it the minority? My view is that structural racism needs to be addressed by the majority. Our target audience is the majority. We need the majority to make changes on behalf of the minority, who are the unspoken voices, right? So it's critical that we remember that the audience here is to engage the majority to tackle structural racism and to get rid of it. We need to act on behalf of the minority and the voices that are not there. However, we can include them in the vision of the work of the task force. And I love what Cam said, create sustainable transformation and so forth. I would say a tagline I've been writing down is love Lafayette 2.0. That's creating and thinking through a vision for the next and better vision of our future that we could build to. That's all. Thank you very much.
Oh, excellent. Any questions of the speaker? No. Thank you. Excellent ideas. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, and one last speaker, we have Janine. She'll be joining us. They will be joining us now. Okay.
You are muted, Janine. So try to unmute. There it goes. Oh, nope, it's muted again. Try again.
Unmute. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Well, it saddens me to think about people in my community who don't feel welcome or that they belong. I worked in a company that, I'm retired now, but I worked for a company where equal opportunity and, I mean, we had a code of business conduct where we treated everybody, I mean, that was part of our ethic, was to treat everybody fairly and without racism or any other kind of discrimination. So to have a work environment that was good for everyone. So I kind of was in that bubble, but apparently in my own community, there are problems. I do want to say that there is something to be said for police officers, having enough police officers to keep vulnerable people safe. So quite a few years ago now, my parents were still alive. They were elderly, and I was at work, and they went downtown to get groceries. And then when they came back, the alarm of the house, we have an alarm. The alarm was ringing, and a police officer was in the driveway with his gun drawn because obviously someone had broken into our home. And by the time the police officer got there, they were long gone. The criminals were long gone. But my parents were quite traumatized by the experience, and so was I, although not as much as they were, but still it was traumatic to think. I mean, we lost things, things were stolen. But I was very grateful that my parents were not home when these criminals came into our house. I'm thinking, what if they'd still been there? Oops, sorry, I'm having a low battery problem. What if there had not been the fear of the police coming? The criminals could have still been in the house when my parents got home. And who knows what would have happened to my parents if there hadn't been a police response.
So
They
we're
weren't
just about at 3 minutes. If you could wrap up, that would be great.
okay.
Yes,
Well,
thank
there's
you.
no way my parents were elderly and vulnerable. My father walked with a walker. I mean, they were very vulnerable people, and they needed the protection of a police officer.
Thank you. That is the thing that I'm hearing, from other neighbors too. I 100% believe that we will get buy-in by our chief of police. And if it's not as safe or safer, then we need to rethink. So yes, I hear you. We want to make sure that everybody feels safe, right? That's the goal. Appreciate the
Thank
comments
you.
though. Any other
Thank
comments?
you.
Yes, any other comments, Sir Speaker? Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have no more public speakers at this time.
Okay, so move on for discussion. So our items were to establish a vision and the objectives. So does anyone want to start with the discussion? Teresa, are you? Yeah.
Yes, and Wei Tai said it much more linearly and succinctly. What I was sort of trying to say in the beginning, that I feel like that I agree with him that we don't need to rush. I think that we've had a lot of information. I, for one, appreciate the public comment because, and I think Vice Mayor Candell, you mentioned it, or maybe both of you did, but that this is the beginning of many dialogues and conversation. And having the three of us sort of lay something out, I think it gets us going by having this meeting and discussing it. But I think the sort of how we move forward might be more appropriate for a meeting that we've set a time limit on, and that we're trying to move forward on. So I happy to discuss objectives and things like that and try and vote on things, but I don't think that it's the best use of our time or the community's time tonight.
Okay, all right, Cam.
Yeah, I agree with Councilmember Geringer. I think tonight is more of a study session, if you will, or a kind of soaking in what the public is expressing. And again, when I raised this, I was all for urgency, but it was urgency around getting together and meeting and starting the dialogue, which we've done. So and I'm taking a ton of notes, and we're all taking, I think, and I agree with Wayside 100%. I don't think we need to etch in stone tonight what our vision is if we're not ready, or our name, or these key values, because they're important. Once we do etch them in stone, I think it's important that we stick to them, and then we have a roadmap to really succeed. and in the short term and the long term. So I agree with Teresa fully.
Well, that makes it 3 of us. I absolutely agree with you guys. This is a big thing, and let's get these right. And I think a lot of the things we heard tonight can be used to craft, what as we go forward, but don't decide on it right now, right? So it'll craft what's going forward. I don't want people to feel that we're not being urgent. We just want to get it right. And to do that, we do need to engage. We do need to take into account everything that's going on. And we don't want to miss something. And so if you could be patient with us a little bit on these, and I promise we will get to them and we will nail them, but it'll be something that we all agree on instead of trying to do it tonight. So I think that is fair. I think we might table, and then on the next agenda item, we will have some proposals for people to digest and comment on those. I would prefer that strategy. And so we'll take all these notes and come up. And so for the next meeting, we'll have some proposals, some things to throw darts at, and then everybody hopefully can weigh in on them. But instead of trying to write them all down right now and vote on them, let's do that at the next meeting. I agree. So I think I'm getting some nodding. Teresa, what are you thinking?
Yeah, no, I think that some of the things about next steps and strategies will come out of the agenda item 4C in terms of how we move forward with a sense of urgency by figuring out what the task force is. So do we want to go to item 4C or wait?
I think that's great. I think we are done with this, and we will have on the next one, hopefully we'll have, some possible names, some visions, and some objectives for us to look at. We'll discuss that at the end, but that would be a goal, at least for me. So now, so let's move on to 4C, which would be to identify strategies to achieve the vision. And so do we have any discussion from our council members as we start on strategies?
So Cam, I know Cam has in his email when he first sent it, out about starting this committee, but I would, and this, we're at the section where, I can go into a little my process bent now, but I guess it's what do we envision the task force? And I love that, Michael and others and Kishore is on multiple task force that are doing it. And I apologize, Michael, I jumped right into branding. But I think one of our discussion points is who else should be at the table in our task force? How do we engage the community? I mean, I know we can have a town hall, and I believe that will be an effective tool at some point. We can have dialogue groups, and I'm sure all of us looked at all of the different, or not all, because I do have a day job, as I know you two do, but looked at a lot of models and best practices. And at some point, I'd like to hear from Narup about maybe what other communities around us are doing. I know that Narup, this is important, what's important to all of us. But I think the idea of what we look like, or what our task force looks like, and begin to think about who the components are from the community, similar to Councilmember Burks, then Mayor Burks, when we put together our strategic objectives and goals last year. How do we work at making sure everyone's there? How eventually we will do with the general plan, who the pieces are in the general plan. I think it's more defined, and then get to that application process that somebody mentioned, I don't, maybe Meredith, but I think that for me is sort of where the discussion is now. And then we have more people at the table. I appreciate, having it pointed out that really a lot of this messaging is to the majority, maybe all of it, in terms of how we get people to move and to transform. But I think we start with making sure our table's really big. I'm sorry, I'm using cliches and things, but make sure that we're including those people. And I think tonight talking about who we think that is and how we move forward with doing that. So before we come back with, here's the name and here's all these ideas, we're actually sitting down and talking about that with people who have those experiences, people who are, as you pointed out, Vice Mayor Candell, concerned about, and someone else point the zero sum, you know, that it's not, that's part of the overdue conversation. And the other thing I want to say is that somebody was talking about our language and everything. And I really appreciate people pointing out where we're stumbling, because I'm stumbling and I'm going to make mistakes and I'm going to say the wrong thing, but that's why we're here having that discussion. So anyway, a little over there, but I think we need to begin to figure out who needs to be with us in this discussion and what our task force looks like.
All right, Councilmember Burks.
Thank you. And yeah, Councilmember Guerra, I really appreciate where you're coming from. The structure of this really means everything and actually executing on the plan and moving the ball quickly. So we need to get that straight. And I'll go back to what I was thinking weeks ago on how do you include the entire community in something this big and this important, and to be inclusive of everybody who wants to join, and not just the residents of Lafayette. I mean, our business community, absolutely. People will come and visit, absolutely. I mean, extended family members, absolutely. I mean, everybody. And one of the things I was thinking about, and you know, Kishore said it earlier, and I'll just read again my notes from 3 weeks ago, was based around engagement and identifying certain elements or certain segments that we would try to tackle, like we did when I suggested those annual goals. And we all kind of split up and sort of took one or two or three and worked on them with the members of the community who came out in force. And by the end of that year, and I'm not suggesting it take us a year, we're able to come up with, you know, an engagement plan and actually start executing on it. And when I was chair of the Crime Prevention Commission, I would do that. I would, you know, a commissioner would raise their hand with a great idea, and my response would be like, "Great, go for it, and tell us how it worked at the next meeting." And that's sort of what my thought process was. So when I had this written down earlier, it was around engagement and engaging, again, our commissions as an avenue to get dialogue going into the community, our faith-based community. Again, another really important element of our community, our schools, our police. And for those of you talking about the police, I just wanted to put a plug in. We have a subcommittee on safety, and we're engaging, and Councilmember Bliss and I are on that subcommittee, and we're going to have a town hall with the police chief. We've had one already, but we're going to have a second one later in July that will engage on police issues associated with what we're talking about tonight. So I just want to let those folks that didn't know, we'll get the word out when we get the date going. But the police, definitely, parent groups, special organizations like the Lafayette Homeowners Council, the city government is definitely part of this as well, and individuals. I mean, those are just a few groups or elements that I think we really need to focus on in engagement. And, you know, then looking for volunteers in the community who might want to jump on with maybe one of the three of us, if that's legal for the Brown Act, to kind of go off of under, you know, the vice mayor's direction to go and try to tackle. That was my overall sort of way to hit these groupings of strategies to lead us towards success to the vision, if that makes sense. Hopefully I wasn't stumbling my words there too much.
Sure. So I guess what I'm hearing is, for sure that is the who is on the task force is absolutely critical, and who we're identifying to reach out to engage. Is that how? Am I reading you both correctly? Those are they're two separate things, but
that was my. That's basically where I was coming from, Susan. Yeah.
Okay, Teresa, is that something you are?
So
is that clear?
Yeah. So your list, Cam, and that's why I was raising my hand to ask. And so, excuse me, Vice Mayor Burks. And I apologize to everyone else that I'm saying your first name and we're here over here being formal, and it's because I don't always remember the last names, but I've written them down. So what, in terms of engaging commissions, it's we're identifying segments that would be part of the task force, and somehow we would get an individual to come and then they would help us to engage. I guess it's sort of the how, because your list was very similar to, you know, what I wrote down around the segments, the agencies, other groups in the community. I would add, maybe you said it, but business, city, you said city governance, and I assume that means city staff, employees, business, both owners and their staff somehow, as we're, you know, engaging all of that. I like the idea of figuring out that survey of how we talk to people who don't live here. But in those categories or groups that you identified, was your view we as a city and a task force would go out and engage, or like Susan would take on schools, because that would be where I would want to go, no, or faith-based, I would take on faith-based also, you know, would be happy in that section, or that representatives of those people come to the table?
Yeah, great question. So my vision for this, just back when I presented, before I presented to the council, was, for example, our Senior Services Commission, which we're both on, just to make it relatable to both of us. Say you took that one, because I think, for example, our Senior Services Commission represents a large demographic in town that's incredibly important and has a reach across our city, across our community, that's incredibly valuable for something like this, to promote dialogue. So what I would envision is, you know, you would lead that effort, but with a group or a few folks that would want to volunteer with you from, this is just hypothetical, looking at this list of 51 participants here, and, you know, attend one of their meetings or two of their meetings and come up with a strategy, and to have them be, you know, our commissioners be the ambassadors to go out and affect whatever we would, you know, what we're thinking of, and to develop that strategy with that particular commission. So it's not, so it's, I guess it's the former rather than the latter with your question.
Anup, do you want to say, are you?
Yeah, I was going to ask if
you're muted. Yeah, sorry.
This all the time, waiting for you to speak, Vice Mayor, and then I have a couple of thoughts.
Oh, sure. No, I like that. I would rather divide and conquer on this one. I don't think that any one of us, this task force should be the entity that goes out to all these different commissions. I think that we should be helping establish the goals, do the things, and have the strategies and the visions, but then let our commissions take some of this effort. I think that would be great, as they are appropriate. And when there isn't a commission that covers people that we want to engage with, then we think of something else on how to engage them. All right, so Narup, is that?
Thank you. This sounds wonderful, and I really commend the council for getting into it and getting into this topic quickly. As I listen to it, the question that comes up is, what are we going to ask? What are the questions that you are going to ask? What is it based on? The speaker talked about who are we now? Have we established some data points, identified some problems, and then created questions to go and ask the community? And I will say that this is such an important topic that I know we have a difficult budget here, but if we really want to speak the right words and be effective, I think we need somebody to help us facilitate, at least in the beginning. so that everyone's on the same page. We know what the issues are, what questions to ask, the language to speak, and then you can go out and talk to the various groups and report back. But I think we need to establish some common questions and factors first. And we need professional assistance.
Thank you for your good, excellent guidance for us on that. Thank you. I think it will be far more effective if we get that kind of help. That sounds great. All right, are we ready to go to public comment on this, or any more concerns? Okay, all right. Hey, Jeff, I think we'll go to public comment. And so please, if we are talking about identifying strategies to achieve the vision, and please state your name, and then if you'd like to share where you live. Thank you.
We should also remind folks that if they do want to speak, they should use the raise your hand function if they're on a computer, or the *9 if they're on a telephone, if they would like to participate, raise their hand. So we have two folks coming up here, and the first is Michael Kass. So he's joining the panel now.
You are muted, Michael.
Good evening again, everyone. I just wanted to follow up with something that I included in my letter that I submitted to the council last week. I think it's really important that as part of the roadmap that is put together, that you include some short, medium, and long-term solutions to help create a more equitable community. I think it's the way that this effort can actually be successful. And I think it's important as part of that roadmap, you include a way that you actually have some tangible efforts and a monitoring criteria so that we ensure that this is not just a discussion that happens now, a couple quick items, and then a plan that sits on the shelf. This is something that needs to be ingrained as part of the Lafayette community from this point forward. In terms of the discussion, there's a lot of groups that should be included, but my recommendation would be to actually kind of split the effort up into three big areas. The first would be internal city operations. That could be such things as human resources behavior and who is actually brought on staff and the outreach efforts there. It could be training efforts to ensure that staff is using correct terminology. Secondly, I would break down this effort into city external operations. That largely would be some of the existing policies that are in place, such as affordable housing and what's being done from affordable housing standpoint, and what could be done to actually have more opportunities for a diverse population, enabling more opportunities for those who who work currently in Lafayette, but don't currently live here to potentially down the line actually live here. Additionally, part of those external reaching efforts could include the demographics of your commissions and committees. Are you actually having those that are making policy decisions and policy recommendations? Are they coming from a diverse background and a diverse perspective? And then finally, and we've heard it tonight from a couple of those other groups, there are a lot of other efforts, and this is a bigger discussion that is beyond the city council. I think having some discussions about community stakeholders, partners, and initiatives that are separate initiatives that are going on, but the focus of that discussion should be how that relates to what the city's doing and how the city can partner and complement that. That's what I have. Thank you.
Great. Any questions of the speaker?
I don't have a question. I would just, I would really commend Michael's letter that he wrote that was in the packet for the last meeting to everybody on the line right now to take a look at. It's on our website to take a look at and read. Really well done. Thanks.
Yes, thank you, Michael.
Okay, next we have Kishore Nath again. He's joining the meeting now.
There we go. Sorry, I got disconnected from the group for a little bit. I know in the interest of time that people have things to do. So I wanted to say thank you for hosting this meeting. I do agree with Michael, who I've not met, but I've agreed with most of what he said, that some very short-term actionable things will let the community know that that people are serious about what we're going to do. There are tons of resources here in Lafayette. There are a lot of parent organizations and civic groups that are organizing already. And I think just really starting with one of those, the mission statement or the vision statement, and if the group is inclined to do so, make it a little uncomfortable. You know, this, I think there was a comment about people are worried about if you don't fund the police. The false narrative that there's this dichotomy between how do you make people feel safe in their community and total anarchy and chaos. That's something where even most police people don't agree with that either. So I think some really short-term actionable items that could be started with a statement and then start with demographics, like Michael mentioned, is like, hey, this is what we are, this is who we are, this is what our committees are consisting of, and just, even if it's uncomfortable, just release what's happening, release the data so people can make judgments about it, and then some education things about you know, these are the terms that we're going to use from now on. There are plenty, believe me, we have a lot of people who want to be consultants. And so there's so many opportunities, like an RFP for that would be like, here's our scope. You'll get so many proposals. So I think it's a really good idea to say, let's bring in someone outside to kind of assess the situation, because otherwise it's too uncomfortable and it's too personal. And it just makes it easier. So I'm done. Thanks.
Thank you. Any questions for the speaker? No, thank you, Kishore.
Okay, and we have Susie Pack joining the meeting now as our next speaker. Susie, if you could unmute yourself.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for convening this meeting. I just wanted to share with you my experience serving on the Lafayette School Board. We had a special study, I don't know if it's a special meeting a couple weeks ago. And we are not as savvy as you all with technology, and we don't have a Jeff to help us let people in and out of the room. So we had our superintendent and one of our board members read public comments that were submitted by parents, by students, by community members. And I have to say, it was some of the most compelling words that I have heard in my 6 years. And these were people's words, but they were read by someone else. I can't imagine what it would have been like to hear them coming from the people who wrote them. So as you launch into this endeavor, which is this very admirable and much needed, well overdue endeavor, I would encourage you to start with the listening campaign. And what I mean by that is you can, this is a very personal, it's a very vulnerable, it's a very powerful thing that you're asking people to do. And I think that before you can diagnose or strategize, and believe me, I love data points just as much as you all do, but before you can come up with solutions, I think you need to hear what the symptoms are before you can diagnose properly. And there is a lot of hurt that has been happening in this town for many years. We need to hear from the people who've been affected, and we need to hear what they've experienced before we can figure out how to change this. So I just wanted to share that with you.
Are any questions of the speaker? Hey, Susie, I do have a question. What was a successful strategy for you to encourage the types of comments that you are able to get, and can you give any advice to the city on how we should, launch this listening stage?
I think your idea of having a town hall, I'll tell you what, there's a town hall either on Zoom or wherever, people are going to show up. You don't need to tell them what to say. You just tell them what the topic is and why you want to hear from them. And you broadcast that loud and wide, and people will show up. It'll probably be like a planning commission meeting, 7 hours long. I don't know, but it's important. It's important to hear people so they feel heard. And then I think the responsibility of the committee or the task force or whatever you're going to call it is to take that. And that should be the basis of the work that you do and the strategies that you develop and the goals that you set, rather than diagnosing without actually talking to the patient.
That's some really excellent advice. Thank you, Susie. Yeah, okay, we'll listen and consider that, your comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Susie, I want to thank you for the shout out. Appreciate that.
If you ever want a part-time job, Jeff, you know where to find us. Just kidding. Just kidding. You're right.
Somebody mute you.
All right, hold on. You know what? I think I just put Cam. Hold on a second here. Too many moving parts. Okay. There we go. I think Cam's going to join us again. Okay, we have no more public comment, Madam Chair.
Excellent.
Hold on, just
okay.
As a hand went up. Okay, it's Rosie Mikado who's doing the meeting now.
You are muted, Rosie.
Yes, thank you. Good evening. I appreciate your time and the creation of this task force. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Okay, excellent. So my suggestion is piggybacking off of Michael Kass, I believe, who suggested education within the city council members that will be involved in the task force. And I just would like to echo that recommendation to say that as much as I appreciate your commitment to this task force, it is essential that anybody who wishes to work here, regardless of how we identify as white or people of color, that we are willing to explore our own personal biases, the history of policing, the history of racism, the history of voting, any kind of history that leads to the organization of our town policies, our school institutions, our real estate management. All of that needs to be carefully analyzed and studied in order to have a very good understanding of the chaos, if not the barriers that have prevented people from becoming a part of our community. But it is equally as important that anyone who is involved in this task force be willing to tap into that zone of discomfort, which many have suggested already. This is the biggest challenge and requires the biggest source of courage, to be willing to do some internal reflection and consider how we as individuals play a role in being part of the problem, whether we like to consider ourselves tolerant and extremely accepting. We all have some internal work that we need to investigate. And if we can't take the time and effort to explore those internal forces, then we are not going to be a strong committee, because we are doing an injustice to those we work with and those who we attempt to serve. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Rosie. Any questions of the speaker? No, I agree. It was other people have also echoed. It's the majority, which is we're part of that, and so we do need to be the ones who change. So appreciate Rosie.
Okay, we have one more public comment, and that's Heidi Plume, who's now going to be joining the meeting.
It's Plum, but that's okay. Like plumber without the ER. I speak from a place of being completely ignorant how the government works between our cities. I'm happy to start my video if you want me to. But I know from beginning to do some social justice work within La Marinda, there's a lot of people feeling the same way here. And when I hear Narup saying about hiring professional assistants, I 100% agree. And I'm wondering if combining the forces of these 3 towns that are not that huge is possible. That's the part I'm completely ignorant on. I don't know if that's something that would slow this progress down. I would say don't do it. But if there's something about combining forces between Moraga, Orinda, and Lafayette, then we should try to bring that force together so that hopefully the ripple will be bigger. If it slows that ripple down, we shouldn't. But I have a feeling that it's possible that, because I know how many people are in these 3 communities right now that are trying to work together because our school districts cross borders, if you will, that there's something juicy about us working together as a tri-city committee, a tri-city task force. So I would ask you to try to work that angle.
Okay, any questions of the speaker? No, thank you, great idea. Thank you.
Okay, no more public speakers at this time.
Okay, all right, so identify strategies to achieve the vision. I'll let you guys start. That'll come back to me. So any, all right, Chisa.
So, so I'm kind of circling back to the very beginning of the meeting, which was where it was where I was, all of us have said it throughout, but engaging the community and hearing from them. And so I very much value Susie's input, all the input, but Susie's input on listening. Part of my coming into this, so I think the community engagement is very important. And out of that, when I was talking data and using data and all of that, it was also that listening, that anecdotal, those stories that tell us, lift up. We all heard it at the rally or the protest. We have seen it, and I know we've seen it on social media. I have not personally experienced it in that way. I am very much trying to, so I think it was Rosie, thank you, Rosie, very much trying to study and learn as much as I can so I can be as effective as I can. But I think that listening and getting a sense of the areas of community concern are the important thing, rather than me wanting to put a army together and figure out how to go out there and do it. And maybe it is that town hall, that listening tour, getting the information, but simultaneously or in parallel with that, doing that RFP to get, I think that's not me, but doing that RFP to get the consultant going, because as Cam pointed out in his first email, there's someone in Berkeley, and then there GARE, who I'm not going to remember the acronym. Contra Costa County used them, and Contra Costa County is looking at developing an office of racial equity, and I'm not going to remember all of the names for that particular office. But so there are lots of opportunities, and I do like the idea. I had made a note about it being La Marinda. I know several of us are on Facebook and are part of the groups, La Marinda Diversity, La Marinda Families, a lot of other groups who have been having this discussion for a long time. Figuring out how to partner with that. And Narup, I don't know if other communities have been talking about that. I know that GARE does have cohorts and does do work. I'm not pushing them. I'm just saying that's the one I'm aware because I work with the county, so I'm more familiar. But I think that RFP process does show movement, as Kishore talked about, and just basically getting that information. And so I'll back off on wanting to form a whole big committee, and look forward to the discussion.
Okay. All right. Councilmember Burks.
Wait, actually, if I could, sorry, one
Yes,
more
go
thing.
ahead.
And those in the attendee list who know the one more thing, I will back off on the big, whatever, task force, however large it is, for now, because I do think that we don't want to lose sight of that if we just do it and we just go to our commissions, to Michael's point, definitely need to engage the commissions, but we definitely want to make sure that we're getting that representation out in the community to partner with us. And so if it's those other, the library or other groups that are doing it, the schools, we need to bring that all back together at some point.
Yeah,
Councilmember Burks. Yeah, sorry.
thanks. Yeah, I again agree with Councilmember Geringer. I think I mentioned in the beginning. I do agree. We should bring in a facilitator to help us, somebody who's steeped in race relations and can help us, formulate a strategy. And then three of us, and then all of our community that's involved in this, can bring that on the ground sort of, element to the picture. Susie's comment and suggestion around a listening tour, I've done those in business where they're critical, and it's a fantastic idea. I think we need to elicit, and you asked a great question, Susan, on how you elicit comments that we really need to hear. So I think the sooner we do that, the better. And I'll just end with what Kishore said in terms of, and also what Michael said was, the near term, the midterm, the long term. We do need, I believe, some quick action to show the community that we are moving this and that we're not a bureaucratic government committee task force. I'll just say it, because there's some momentum right now, and we need to capture that. And that's why I was very hawkish in trying to get this moving quickly. So those are just my comments, but I do believe we need it. Every single word matters. And, I did a lot of this in undergrad a long time ago, but a professional who can come in and help us and get it right, I think is absolutely important. I think the sooner we do that, the better. Thanks.
Excellent. I absolutely agree. I think that we are starting to congeal around a much finer vision of where we're going. I think that the town hall going quickly, and with the crime, it's with the Crime Prevention Commission, right? Do we bring in a facilitator for that, for the town hall even? Do we or do we wait? It seems like it would be too long to get a facilitator for that, even though it would be great. I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Is this for the Public Safety Committee? Susan?
Yes.
Okay. I don't know. I think I'd love to be able to ask Stephen if he was here, but my colleague, we're going to hold a town hall, the second town hall. We're actually going to propose, I believe, some action. The first town hall was to take in all of the emails and the notes and the comments and everything, and to get some answers out on sheriff's department policies and so forth, and to lay the groundwork. The second town hall is to suggest some, potential reform or potential tweaks, potential action that we can start with. And I think the sooner we do that, the better. I think that the chief, and I think with Council Member Bliss and myself, and with Narup and the other staff members, I think we're going to be able to do that in an acceptable way.
Okay.
And it's going to be soon. It's going to be really soon.
Okay, so it doesn't sound like this is the listening campaign that Susie was talking about.
No.
Right. I'm just making clear. I just want to make sure
absolutely.
that the direction is there. But okay, so that sounds great. I think that there are, other cities. Walnut Creek has letters coming out to the county asking for help with the mental, if they get a call about a mental health issue. and things like that. And I hope that you are exploring that. And that does sound like the right format, and you're the right group to do that. And you're probably right. Maybe a facilitator is not needed for that, but for a big listening campaign town hall, that seems like the one that we would want to organize and get a facilitator in. Am I hearing that from you, Teresa, as well?
Sorry. I think we need the facilitator to help us work through the process of where we're going. And Narup, actually, maybe we need the facilitator before we do start a listening tour. So if we are listening and we're saying this is the vision loosely that we came up with, tonight, or the reason we began this task force to begin with, I'm thinking that we could do a listening tour because we're listening. And then we're not specifically going out and asking questions the way we would be with the commissions. But Narup, I know you've talked about this and have done this. And if you think we need to do the RFP and hold off on the other piece of it, not jump ahead on the getting the community areas of concern.
I don't know whether we need an RFP per se at the moment. What I do think we need is somebody to facilitate the engaging and listening town hall meeting. I have had some conversations with Superintendent Whitmore, and I know that board members Mead and Pack are here. Maybe they can help. They did have somebody facilitate, I believe, their first meeting, and will again. And the ability for somebody, a neutral party, to hear the comments and maybe group them or start to distill the issues is very critical, and somebody who's trained to do so. So we may need somebody to help us in the long term, but I think I can find a facilitator for your initial town hall meeting rather quickly. The question is, when do you want to hold the town hall meeting? The Public Safety Committee is holding one in the week of July 20th. And so you don't want it too close.
We missed that. I missed, you dropped out for just a second.
The week of July the 20th.
Okay.
When they are scheduled to hold that meeting. You want to set this apart a little bit so you will have people recognize they are, at the moment, two separate parallel tracks. And so maybe tonight, if you can give me some direction on when you are available for this listening tour, Jeff and I can work on publicity, on getting somebody to facilitate it, and we can go from there. I just wanted to mention that Assistant Admin Services Director Jennifer Wakeman and PTR Director Jonathan Katayanagi have both volunteered to help in this effort. So really, truly grateful to them. So we can get started on fixing a date, hiring somebody, and doing the publicity. Since it could be the first week of August, it could be, it's at your pleasure.
Got it. Okay. So I know that kind of goes into the next discussion item is discuss next steps, and we're still on the strategies. But I think the concept here again is true, is that they're so interrelated that we really ought to wait on, nailing all of the strategies until we've listened. And it kind of goes with everything else that we're going along here. It's like, we really need to launch off this listening campaign. I'm hearing, and we really should have a facilitator. And I know that's not identifying the strategies, but that is somewhat of a strategy for today, is maybe that's how we prioritize what we go moving forward. Does anybody else want to comment on that, on how to lay out the strategies?
I would just say, I would suggest, I agree with everything you're saying, and everything that a lot of what the speakers are saying. It's fantastic. August 1st, or the week of August 1st is a month from now, which isn't, I guess it's appropriate to do it after, we have the police subcommittee meeting, but I don't know if it's critical. I mean, they're separate. We're going to be working separate tracks all along here. And again, I'm one of promoting some urgency behind this. Even if we identify a name, I think we should identify just a placeholder name, so when we announce a meeting or a town hall, they know what we're meeting about, and it could be the one we use tonight. But I think that's important. I guess I'm fine with it, and we want to get it right, and I've advocated for that. I just, waiting another month to move on this gives me some trepidation, and that's just top of mind, I guess, for me.
All right, Teresa, Councilmember Geringer.
I know.
Sorry.
It's almost 8 o'clock. You can call me Teresa. No,
Okay.
So Vice Mayor Candell. So the week after, so is the week of the 27th or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it might make us feel better that it's still in July, that week starts there. So I would like us to, I appreciate Narup and also the impact on staff and the messaging, but I think that with the great messaging and outreach that we'll do, that I think we'll get the messaging that they're on a different track right now. So that doing it, we have a council meeting that Monday night, but if we could, schedule it somewhere in that week immediately following the public safety, but before the first full week of August, I think might be a compromise to get it going sooner.
Be happy to do that.
Great, thank you. I totally agree. It did seem too far away. Okay, so the other thing is we also wanted to kind of talk about the task force and the makeup of the task force. Are we ready to talk about that tonight on who we should reach out to, or do you want to also wait on that for the next meeting of this group? We'll have suggestions to throw darts at.
I think that's where, when I was saying that, I wanted to go and who's going to be at the table and how many people and which group will they represent and all of that, that I circled back around based on the public comment to do that community engagement on just the beginning of the listening and hearing the areas of concern. So I don't think tonight, unless Council Member Burks has, different thoughts about it, I think that can be part of the strategies that will come out of the areas of concern, and also out of if we do end up having an outside group work with us.
Okay.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, if I was not on the council but really eager to join this initiative, I'd want to know what the vision is and the strategies are and the objectives are before jumping in. And I think once we get some more clarity around that, folks will really be kind of jazzed and we'll know who wants to be involved. And then we should absolutely include the public's got it. Let's do this unconventionally, like nothing we've done before.
Okay.
Without breaking the law. The Brown Act.
Thank you. Right. So it sounds like, so maybe we'll go, since we're going to push off the strategies, achieve the vision, we'll discuss the next steps. We'll go into discussion item 4D, which is discuss next steps. And so I think what I'm hearing is that they've got the crime prevention second town hall coming up, and that'll be in the third week of July. We'll do another town hall the week of July 28th, not that Monday, but another night. And I'm thinking that can we run it with this task force as leading that town hall with a facilitator? That's kind of what I'm hearing as maybe the right thing to do, and acknowledge that this is the big listening campaign. This is the start of the real listening campaign that we'll use to help us launch the visions and the objectives and the strategies. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, I would just say totally 100% I agree with, but I got to say tonight was, for me, framework wise, was extremely helpful for us to walk into that listening strategy with having in our head. So I really want to thank everybody who gave a lot tonight.
Right. Yeah, no, I think we have a lot of stuff to at least start with. Yeah. And then following the town hall, we'll have the next meeting where maybe we do have some more concrete items to discuss after the listening campaign. Okay. Yes, Teresa.
And then Cam said something about the naming in terms of a placeholder. And I think the name of this tonight, anyway, I mean, do we want to discuss just having a topic name or some kind of a name, even though we all agreed that we didn't need to rush into a forever name? So I think that was the thing Cam had thrown out there, but we didn't.
Councilman Burks, you have a comment?
No, I would say, to be honest with you, I think we do need to have, we need to identify, I think, for the listening strategy to elicit the public to come.
Right.
So I think we've gotten a lot of great feedback tonight. I don't know if we need to deliberate, the three of us, or, you know, Susan, if you would like to work with Narup to come up with that. And I mean, I'm fine with that. Councilman Geringer, I don't know if you are, or if, but we do need to identify. I believe we need to identify, and it is a placeholder, because we will get to listening. We'll hear from folks, and then we'll vote on a. I would imagine we would vote on a name.
Yes. Okay. So go ahead, Teresa.
I agree. That's fine. And the I went back to look at the people who did comment on that, and I think where we've talked about words matter, I trust that we'll be sensitive to those and not creating that sense of otherness, and without having to write every word that applies, and not jumping to branding. But I agree that we don't need to do it tonight.
Okay, that's great, and I agree. So Narup and we can take that and discuss based on a lot of the suggestions that we had tonight and see if we can come up with something. Do you want us to bring that back to all of us, like at the next council meeting, or when do we, because we kind of need it before the town hall, right? Or when do we do this?
I think, go ahead, Cam.
Oh, I would just say I'm very comfortable with you, with me seeing it for the first time, so we don't violate the Brown Act in the announcement with the agenda.
Perfect. Yeah. Okay, sounds great. We will work on that. Okay, so now public comment. Does anybody have any, Jeff, do we have any public comment for the next steps?
We do, Madam Chair, and I just want to remind folks, if they do want to comment, you can use the raise your hand feature or star 9 on their cell phone. But right now we have Camille Weeks, and she will be joining the meeting now.
We cannot hear you. Oh, there she goes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Hi there.
Hello.
I've been living here since 2009, most of that time in Spring Hill and just recently downtown. And I have a 3rd and a 5th grader. And I just wanted to just say some perspective on the listening campaign, that the folks who you want to listen to are, I think, the folks that have lived here, the people of color who've lived here, past and present, who have a perspective that really has felt like it was never listened to before. So at the same time that the majority citizens are trying to self-reflect and do the work and change the culture, it'd just be worth trying to make sure that folks who have been a little bit, disengaged and jaded and hurt, really hear the message that this is going to be something different, that they really want to, we want to hear the stories and the feelings and bring it now, because this is time to make some changes. So however that fits in, I thought that probably a facilitator would be helpful in doing that, helping to do that kind of targeting and marketing of this event. But I just wanted to say it now. And what else do I have to say? Yeah, I guess that's it for now. But thank you all for working on this. It's been great seeing the changes and see the community take ownership. Oh, one more thing. I would also say that hopefully the city will focus on the things that are not so easily focused on for other institutions. Like you have the schools is an organization that's able to have its own reach and plans. And then you have the police and the public safety there. That's an organization that's already in place. But what I think of when I think of ways that I haven't felt welcome or included over the years here has to do with the private sector. And it could be anything from real estate to retail. So I don't know exactly how either the Chamber of Commerce or different professional organizations like realtors would be involved. But I think that the city, since it's so overarching, could be particularly effective in trying to change the culture of how people of color feel when they're here, whether they feel, whether they're treated like like they belong here, or whether they're treated like, no, there's no way you live here, or just, oh, where are you from? Not here. So I think that can go a long way. So
okay, we are at 3 minutes.
Okay, are you finished?
I'm finished.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for the speaker?
Yeah, just
Councilmember Geringer. Yes.
First of all, Camille, thank you for coming to the meeting and speaking out. And I love the recommendation of making sure that we're hearing from impacted community members and people who may have moved out of the community. And so do you have thoughts on how we do that? I know we don't do exit interviews when people leave, but do you have thoughts on how we engage now, kind of like the earlier speaker talked about, asking employees at restaurants or wherever, or people who don't live here, sort of that outreach efforts, if you have thoughts on that, or if you at some point would be willing to share those with us, Narup, or whoever, that would be great, because I think that's part of the challenge as well, is reaching beyond, I believe everybody's on Facebook and Nextdoor 24/7, but how are we reaching out to everyone, and particularly people who aren't here, but who would have very important input for us as we move forward?
Yes, certainly. It's challenging when people have moved away or disengaged, or even graduates who have had a hard time here have purposely left the community, never intending to come back. But I do think they're all reachable. A lot of folks are reachable. There could be different types of ways that they could input their stories. I think that at the school board meeting, there were more stories that were submitted than could be heard. So if there was different ways of allowing the stories to be, to come into the fold of what's been happening here, I think that would be useful, because everyone may not want to be on a microphone or a camera, and everyone may not want to put their name by their comments if they're very personal as well. So, but I'm certainly willing to help with that.
Thank you. Councilmember Burks, do you have any comments? No, Camille, I completely agree. I would also add financial institutions to your list of private sector. that may be playing a role that is not conducive to being helpful. And yeah, the messaging on this one, it has to, you know, obviously reach the target people, but also help them feel safe, that this is a safe place for them to be telling us stories. We really want to hear, and if they don't feel safe, let's figure out another way, like you say, for them to tell their stories in a way that's safe for them. So I think those are very important parts. Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, our next speaker is Katie Foreman.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hey, so I totally appreciate the desire for you all to do the listening tour and engage with the community and hear residents' experiences. But I'm kind of impatient, and I'm wondering if there's anything we can do in these 4 to 6 weeks while that's underway that shows some immediate progress, which could really be like a good faith effort and demonstrate some real commitment to this that might even encourage people to participate. So I'm wondering if you all could maybe, since you're experts at the city, you know, that piece of it, could we look at some real tangible parts of that piece where you maybe look at the city contracts that you're involved with and consider making sure that the people who are on the other end of those contracts are doing the work, and you know, what are their policies? How are they taking it to the next step? Could you schedule some implicit buying or anti-racism training for your staff? Could you look at, you know, hiring diversity at the city? I know sometimes in these positions it can be hard to find diverse candidates. So can you reach out to urban planning and engineering programs about what they're doing to solve that problem with candidate pool? So those are just some super quick ideas off the top of my head. But I just really think that, like Councilman Burks said, the momentum is here right now, and showing people that you have a commitment and that we're, you know, looking at moving fast could be super, super valuable.
Okay, all right, thank you. Councilmember Burks.
Yeah, thank you very much, Katie. I appreciate your comments. You know, you're on the training, on the implicit bias training. Is that, and this is a question for Narup, our city manager. Would it be possible to set something up maybe for the city council to take?
Yes.
Like quickly? Online, since we can't be, since we're still in COVID, but maybe we start with the top. We start with those of us that have been elected and work for the community. Maybe that could be a good first step. And I do believe it's a great idea to actually look at our you know, the terms of our contracts. I know that's you know, it's resource intensive with your staff, but that's another great idea.
Yeah.
But I like the training idea, and a lot of us have taken it through our companies and so forth. But maybe a different angle, and let's do it now. I think it would be great if we could swing it.
I will definitely check. I just wanted to let you know that I am working with a group to provide training for staff and to serve as a way for staff to express their, you know, staff has gone through a lot of trauma as a result of this. So I am working on that internally, but I can definitely ask about training for the city council as well.
Great. Yeah, maybe we can do it all together, right? I mean, yeah, whatever it would be. Thank you very much, Narup. And thank you, Katie.
Any other questions, Teresa? No, thank you. That was Katie, excellent ideas. And yes, being impatient, it's okay. We also want to do it. I think Cam's group they're going to have some recommendations hopefully at that next meeting, which is before ours. So there hopefully will be even more actions in the near future. That's our goal. Thank you.
All right, one more public speaker, and Kishore Nath joins us again.
Hi there. I guess I'm the anchor. I wanted to thank Councilman Burks for imparting a sense of urgency to this, because there is momentum, and I think someone mentioned that other cities are releasing statements. I can tell you our organization is moving like at lightning speed for a 6,000 person organization. It's amazing. So I'm kind of wanting, I really want to emphasize like doing things in parallel with the listening tour, implicit bias training, like just kind of throw it all out there and really focus on short-term goals and long-term goals. The long-term goals are going to take a long time. They take 5 years, 10 years. To change the culture of a community takes, a generation, but there got to be some short-term things that people can latch onto. And I think either Katie or Camille spoke to this just before me, is just to believe that the city is doing something, because some of those who are activated, and I think I'm one of them, we will participate and help, but if things are going slow, we'll just find like another group to get involved with, just because everyone just wants to just jump in. So communicating that all these are the steps, where can you get involved, where, what's your skill set, and maybe you can pick up a short-term thing, or maybe you can pick up a long-term thing, and just getting people involved. There's so much talent here that there's just a lot of people in the city who I think want to get involved, and there's probably a lot of people who don't know what to do. There's a majority of people who are, I'll just be frank, who are Caucasian, and they're good people and they don't know what to do, but they want to do something. So there's different levels of intensity of work that can be harnessed. And I do want to commend the councilman on the urgency. Is the reality is, in like 6 weeks, 8 weeks, or whatever, we might all be sheltering in place again. Like who knows what's happening, and then you're going to have a lot of people who are just going to be like ripe with energy. And so having those things set up so that people can get engaged is going to be really helpful, and it'll really make our city on the leading edge. Thank you.
Oh, any questions to speaker? No, thank you, Kishore. All right, so is that, Jeff, is that it?
No, we have two more speakers.
Oh, two more. Oh,
Next
super.
up
Okay.
is Meredith Mead, who's joined us now.
Hi, I've changed and moved locations. This is great. You're not the one on the Zoom meeting. This has been great. Thank you so much. There's so much that you guys have talked about. I was just thinking, and this is me, just my own personal opinion, since I have not had a school board meeting since you've been having your meeting. But I would love if Narup would reach out to Superintendent Whitmore about possibly engaging in having the school board engage with the council in the implicit bias training. I've personally done some, but we have not done it as a group. So I think it's great. I mean, I feel like every time you attend one of those things or hear a speaker, you learn something new. So I would just hope that you would reach out to us and we could possibly partner with you on that.
Excellent. Any questions to speaker? No.
Okay.
Wonderful idea.
Thank
Wonderful.
you.
Yes.
Okay, our next speaker is Janet Thomas. Ms. Thomas, you're going to mute yourself anytime.
Hello? I think you're unmuted. Oh, now you're muted. Can you?
Thank you.
Huh?
My name is Janet Thomas. You're a resident of Lafayette. I want to thank you for this endeavor, and just wanted to add one small comment here at the end. Something to think about, maybe offering the implicit bias training to the whole community. Just a thought.
Yeah.
Or how, if it's interactive, that might not be, reasonable, but if it's an organization that presents this to a group, it might be something the whole community could be involved in. Just a thought. Thank you so much.
Any question, Councilmember Geringer?
Yeah, thank you, Janet. So I was going to say earlier and then decided it wasn't relevant, but it is relevant to Janet's comment. I know that we did it. Well, I'm going to say how many years ago, because Chief Christensen was our chief at that time, for the whole community, and we haven't done it in a long time. And so it, is time to do that again. And I'm not sure where it fits in the sense of urgency and everything, but I don't disagree that at some point that will definitely be a useful activity or tool that we would want to look at.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Janet. Good idea. All right, Jeff, are there more speakers?
Yes, Vice Mayor Candela, there are. We have, let me see, well, the hand has been lowered. So we have one, and the person's hand has been lowered. No more public speakers.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for speaking yet again. So I can start with council members. Do you have any comments?
Go ahead,
yes.
Cam. No, I don't. I think we have a pretty good roadmap for next steps. And I found the meeting and the participation from the public and the guidance and the counsel from the public to be, it exceeded my expectations. So I'm grateful for for what I heard tonight and the time spent tonight. And I'm also grateful for Naroop and Jennifer and Jonathan committing to this effort. It means a lot. Thank you.
Councilmember Geringer?
The only thing, exactly all the same things. The only thing I would add is that we would also thank Jeff Heyman for keeping us moderated and moving forward. And I too think that it was a very a good first start. And that's where we have to begin. And I look forward to continuing the work. And I do see a hand up, but.
Yeah, I was just going to say, Vice Mayor Candela, we have a late hand up.
Perfect.
We've got 2 late hands up now.
Okay.
All right. So you want to continue public comment?
Oh yeah, reopen public comment, please.
Okay. All right. So next up is Rebecca, Webster.
By the way, my standing thank you to Jeff Heyman every day.
Yes.
So noted, Cam. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, there we are. Oh, okay, there we are. So I'm Becky Webster. I grew up in Lafayette and am back here with my son. And he wrote a letter yesterday to the council about his rock garden. I don't know if anyone received that as of yet, but he just wanted to, at the end of the meeting, just kind of give his comments about how, he's a white male in the community, but is still impacted by what's going on. And I think getting the community involved, particularly the kids, in terms of what they're seeing and how they're impacted. And he just wanted to tell his story really quickly.
Mm-hmm. Please.
My friend and I decided that we would make a rock garden. We got the idea from my mom's friend, who also made one in Sacramento, and just to support BLM. And yeah, so we set it up close to our house on the trail, and so it says Black Lives Matter on the rocks, and multiple times the letters in the word black have been removed, and just made me very upset.
Yeah, he's replaced them 8 times. I checked on them this morning at 7, and he checked on them at noon and were removed again. So he'll replace them again tomorrow. and will continue to replace them, but has been pretty disheartened by that happening. So.
Yes, thank you so much. And I read your note and my heart just hurt. There's just no room for that here. And that's why we're here. We've got to figure out how to change that. And where, yeah, your rock garden is safe. I mean, my goodness, right? I apologize as a city. I wish that there was something, we could do about that. I'm not sure what we can, but persistence and impatience and your words are going to speak louder to change everything than any of us. So thank you for speaking. I'm glad you felt safe to tell us your story. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Burks.
Can I just, did Rebecca leave?
Wait, no, come back.
I'm going to go out on a limb here because I'm just a lowly council member, but maybe I can ask Narup to ask the mayor if we could invite for the next Pledge of Allegiance at our next council meeting.
Oh.
If you guys are available, or if not, then the next one. But to lead the council and everybody that appears in our Pledge of Allegiance, which we start each meeting with.
That would be wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you. Great. Councilmember Geringer, you're muted. No, okay. All right, thank you very much.
Rebecca, I will reach out to you. I've read your letter. I hope you have the contact information there because I will reach out to you.
Great, thank you so much.
Okay, we have one more public comment, and Trevino, I believe is how it's pronounced. I have a small screen and bad eyes. So Ann is joining the meeting now.
I don't see them. Oh, there it goes. Okay.
And you're unmuted, so you can go ahead and talk.
Hello, everyone. So we are having a serious meltdown in our household, which is why my hand was up and down and up and down. It's all good. So thank you, council members, for hosting this very important meeting and task force. I'm a Lafayette resident. I live on Angelo Street off of Release Valley Road. I am also a parent of a Spring Hill Elementary School student and an alumni of Spring Hill Elementary School. As is my husband. We were born and raised here, and we have come back here for these incredible schools, open space. You all know it. It's why you live here too. There is one reason, I think a big reason that we hesitated, and many of those issues are being raised here tonight. Most of you heard or saw the Camp Belinda video, the students that expressed racial slurs. It was disappointing, it was frustrating, it was offensive. Susie brought up many more that were shared at the school board meeting. There was just that wonderful moving story of the rocks. We all know that sadly these slurs and those comments, these conversations happen all the time, sometimes overtly, sometimes covertly. It's alive and well in our community. And it's nothing new. When I was a high school student, there was a kid that drove around with the Confederate flag attached to his truck. So if there is a community that's the pinnacle of privilege, one that embodies, kind of characterizes patriarchy, white supremacy, I think we're pretty close to being that. And I don't think that any of you, it's nothing new. And I think that's why we're have this task force and have this sense of urgency around these issues. But these issues aren't new necessarily. So it's great to be thoughtful. It's great to be patient. I want to echo Wei Tai's point about just listening and everyone else's point about listening. So we kind of thoughtfully go about this. I've joined the Spring Hill D&I committee. My role at St. Mary's College intersects quite a bit with DEI issues. The Board of Sustainable Lafayette, which I'm on, is having some great discussions around integrating racial justice into our work. One thing I'm acutely aware of is that all of these positions of power and privilege, or many of them, are full of white people. And so our target audience is white privileged people, us in Lafayette, the majority, we are the ones that need to unlearn and learn about systems of oppression and our own biases. But the people in leadership positions need to represent the people that need to be the center of our needs, the most vulnerable populations, people of color in our community that would feel comfortable holding these positions. I think we need everyone to look at these systems from various vantage points to really intentionally dismantle the systems that support racism. So that's really my only comment. I would say that I would echo the thought about going beyond the jurisdictional boundaries. I think Heidi Plum's comments on going beyond just Lafayette. How do we create a culture of anti-racism in the entire La Miranda community?
Just to note that we are at 3 minutes.
Okay, great. So I would jurisdictional boundaries, going beyond that, and also institutional boundaries. So not just going with the status quo. We do this in schools, we do this in private. How do we actually have these larger kind of conversations? So thank you very much. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you. Any comments for the speaker?
No, just thank you. And I do walk by your rock garden, so thank you. And I'm glad that it is still there. So just interesting timing on the rock garden, but thank you for your comment.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, no more public comment.
Okay, great. So discuss next steps. I mean, so what I'm hearing, CAM's the crime prevention, crime, that's the
Public Safety Committee.
Public Safety. I'm like, I keep thinking
Subcommittee.
crime prevention.
Public Safety
Yes,
Committee.
Public Safety Committee is going to have their next meeting. We'll have a big town hall, and we're going to do everything we possibly can to engage and reach out to the people who have been most affected by systemic racism in our city, and don't limit ourselves to people who actually live here by any means. People who visit here, people who maybe work here, try to reach out to them as well. Make sure that the messaging is safe and inclusive, and people will feel good and want to share their stories with us. But the messaging also needs to go out to the majority, and we're gonna we'll get a facilitator. We'll try to make it as nice as we can, but everybody needs to listen, try to get the people who want to speak, and try to get the people to listen as well, and not just us listening. But I don't think that'll be a problem. I really think we'll have a lot of engagement with it. And, if we can send this off into Moraga and Orinda if they want to listen as well, right? That's absolutely something we can do. And we're going to look at training for city council and possibly school board. That's really interesting. And eventually the community. So I think that's kind of our next steps as I'm hearing them. And then from that, on our next meeting, hopefully we'll be congealing a little bit more about strategy and vision, everything. Oh, and Ruip and I are going to get a name. So,
and if,
all right.
Vice Mayor Kendall, I think we can start our listening, our engagement and listening. I'm thinking of an idea of working with Jeff to talk about the work of this task force, and also to invite people to submit their stories throughout this month rather than waiting for the meeting. And for the people who are on this meeting, we need your help to reach out to people who don't live here, people we don't know. My name is Nirup Srivatsa, and my email address is on the city's website. If you can shoot me an email and give us some leads, we'd be happy to reach out as well, but we do need your help.
Okay, sounds great. Any other comments?
Nope.
No. Okay. All right. So if we are all done, and I think we're pretty good about our next steps and what we're going to do, so then I guess next step is adjourn the meeting.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Really, really. This could be really great. I'm very hopeful.
It's going to be.
Yes. Thanks. All right. Thank you, everybody, who participated.